One of them was the Inquisition started in the early 1200s when the Pope launched something called the Albigensian Crusade. And in modern day terms, it would be similar to the Pope announcing a crusade against the Unitarians. The crusade was launched against a group called the Cathars. The Cathars called themselves Christians, but they had a set of beliefs that did not fit with official doctrine. So that's why I use the Unitarians would kind of be similar today. They would call themselves Christians, but they don't believe in the Trinity, that sort of thing. So this crusade launched or unleashed battle-hardened veterans who had fought against Saladin, who had fought against the Muslims in the Holy Land. They were brought back from the Holy Lands so they could attack this small group of Cathars in the Languedoc region of southern France. And it had the kind of results that you would guess. The Crusader army won. Anybody surprised to hear that? No. But tens of thousands of Cathar men, women, and children were slaughtered in the ensuing 20 years. And the last stronghold of the Cathars was a castle called Montségur. And in Montségur, the castle was surrounded by the Crusader army. They held out for days and days and days. Eventually, they ran out of food and water. They surrendered to the Crusader army. They were all taken. The Cathar priests, of which there were 150 or 200 of them, it's off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly anymore, were taken out in front of the castle. Each one of them was asked if they would recant their beliefs. Each one of them answered no, and then they were all burned alive in front of the castle of Montségur. So why am I mentioning the castle of Montségur in terms of the Templars? Well, there are also legends associating that the Templars moved this great treasure that they may or may not have found in the Temple Mount, that they had moved it to southern France at some point. And there are these persistent legends that sometime on the second or third day of the siege of Montségur, that several people were lowered down the side of the walls. They were given something to escape with, and then they disappeared into the night. And the object most closely associated with that legend is that they had taken the Holy Grail, which at that time was being secreted in Montségur Castle, and they had taken it away.
These are the Cathars?
Yeah, somebody working with the Cathars. So that's one of the legends. But other people say, well, they had part of the Templar treasure, and it was the Templar treasure that they had taken away. And even today, there's all kinds of sites in southern France that people have been digging holes in the ground looking for the Templar treasure or the Holy Grail ever since. But now we reach the big one. Now we reach the big legend. When Philip the Weasel arrested all the Templars in France, it was all done like in a 24-hour period. So people say, well, how did this fighting force get so easily destroyed? It was all done in secret. It was a very synchronized police operation. It was kind of like when there were 4 different law enforcement agencies captured Charles Manson in Death Valley. They came in at night. They filled the hills around where Charles Manson was at the Barker Ranch, and then as first light they launched this raid. Well, it was very similar to that, except much larger operation. So when the Templars were captured, there have been persistent legends that have lasted for many, many years, still exist today, that somehow the Templars managed to put their treasure onto a set of ships that sailed away like hours before the arrests occurred. So once again, you see the link, France, Templar treasure. When Philip the Weasel arrested them, no treasure was found. So the legend is that they got their treasure onto these ships. These ships then floated away to somewhere. And now we pick up more legends. And now it's getting more and more esoteric and scattered. So the legend is that the Templars sailed these treasure ships to Scotland, and that they landed in Scotland and they started, they offloaded the treasure. There's various legends about where they took the treasure, and that they left clues in a chapel in Scotland. But some people say that Scottish Freemasonry and then eventually French Freemasonry is essentially the Knights Templars operating after Philip the Weasel arrested them and the order was suppressed. So that legend still exists today. Another group that is sometimes associated with that escape of the loot is the Rosicrucians, who rose up in the Middle Ages. They were into alchemy and all sorts of esoteric things. The Rosicrucians ceased to exist at some point, but there's a modern day group of Rosicrucians in California who claim they are the descendants of the Templar. And there are various groups now today, Rosicrucian, Freemasons, etc., who all claim to be descendant from the Knights Templars. So, kind of similar to the legends about King Arthur, essentially people claim that the Templars did not die, that they did survive and continue to have influence today. I have left out one of the more modern of the legends just because it's so ridiculous, and I don't want to sell any more books for Dan Brown. But the legend that Dan Brown takes advantage of really isn't a legend because it didn't exist until 1982, and when a book called Holy Blood, Holy Grail was written. And since I don't want to add to book sales for either book, I will not mention that particular one, but it has something to do with Jesus and Mary Magdalene. You all know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of legends with the Templars, and it's a very interesting group of people because they grew to such power. They fell so precipitously. They were unimaginably rich. There was all that weird, they were monks, but they were fighters at the same time. So there's a lot of legends about the Templars, and I would say the Templars today are there's probably more broad interest in the Knights Templars today than there was 100 years ago or 200 years ago. It's a story that just won't end. It goes on and on.